it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
Too late. That's what Caroline Leavitt is now saying to The View's desperate on-air plea to squash her $800 million lawsuit. And if you thought this legal firestorm was cooling down, think again. Because while Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny are suddenly trying to play nice in front of millions, Caroline isn't budging. In fact, she's doubling down. And the timing couldn't be worse for ABC. Weeks ago, they mocked her, laughed her lawsuit off as some right-wing stunt. Now they're practically begging for mercy on live TV. But Caroline's message is crystal clear. Too late. Before we dive into the desperate scramble behind the scenes at ABC, go ahead and smash that like button. And don't forget to subscribe for more drama that mainstream media won't show you. Did you subscribe? Awesome. Let's jump into it.
Really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked.
This wasn't just another episode of The View. It was the beginning of a massive storm, and none of the hosts saw it coming. The moment Caroline Leavitt announced her $800 million defamation lawsuit, the studio was filled with smug smiles and sarcastic chuckles. They didn't take her seriously. In fact, they didn't even pause to consider the consequences. Joy Behar, always the first to crack a joke, mocked the lawsuit like it was a bad stand-up routine. "This is just another PR move," she said, waving it off. "Another conservative crying for attention." Whoopi, sitting comfortably in her usual seat, rolled her eyes. "We've had worse," she muttered. "It'll vanish by next week." And Sunny Hostin, the show's legal mind, she smiled and assured viewers, "This case has no legs. None. It'll be tossed out before it gets to court." They all laughed. The audience laughed with them. It was business as usual. Another day, another guest, another segment. What none of them realized was that Caroline wasn't bluffing. She wasn't doing this for fame or headlines. She wasn't chasing a news cycle. She was coming with facts, with evidence, with receipts. Behind the scenes, her team was working overtime. They weren't just collecting what had aired. They were digging into archived episodes, show notes, internal communications, producer messages, everything. Caroline's approach was simple. Don't respond, don't react, just collect. And while The View laughed on national television, ABC's legal department started sweating. Producers started getting emails from legal, asking if they remembered certain conversations. Editors were asked to pull raw footage. Legal assistants were sent into storage rooms to dig through documents. Because what Caroline was alleging wasn't just defamation. It was deliberate humiliation. A character takedown, crafted not in the heat of the moment but in advance. Carefully orchestrated by the very people who now called her overdramatic.
I have to stop you with the camera because I can see you. So do me a favor, don't pull it out again. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Then came the bombshell. Leaked emails from the show's internal Slack channels. One read, "Joy should press her hard on the youth angle. Get her flustered early." Another, "Keep the audience engaged. Cut to reactions when she stutters." Another note, scribbled in a planning notebook, literally read, "Let her dig her own grave. Just ask about Trump. She'll spiral." This was no longer about what aired. This was about what happened before the cameras started rolling. And now, the laughter that once echoed across living rooms was being replayed in silence. In courtrooms, law offices, and media strategy meetings across the country. Caroline didn't scream or rage. She didn't go on a Twitter thread rant. She didn't even drop a vague subtweet. She just sat back, handed her team the proof, and let the legal wheels turn.
Democrats in the media are now unloading all their nasty attacks on rising Trump White House star and new press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Watch this.
Because when you've got truth on your side, you don't need to shout. You just need to wait. As the days went on, the mood inside ABC flipped like a light switch. It went from cocky to cautious, then from cautious to complete chaos. Early meetings were casual. "We've had worse," one exec said during a Monday morning Zoom call. "This will pass like all the others." By Thursday, those meetings turned into crisis calls. Top-tier lawyers were flown in. Damage control consultants were hired. Executives canceled vacations. Entire departments were told to prepare documentation. PR was instructed to monitor sentiment hourly, because what started as a simple lawsuit was now a PR inferno. And here's the kicker. Caroline's team hadn't even begun the discovery phase yet. That was the part that really sent executives into a spiral. Discovery meant both sides would have to turn over evidence. All of it. That meant emails between hosts and producers. Raw footage before and after taping. Planning documents. Internal complaints from staff. Any prior warnings about show conduct. And you better believe there were warnings. One leaked memo from 6 months earlier read, "Am concerned recent interviews with younger conservative guests feel overly aggressive, borderline targeted." Another from HR said, "There's a pattern of strategic tension creation, unclear if it's editorial direction or personal bias."
These women are completely out of touch with reality, and you're right, ABC should wake up.
These weren't random notes. They were warnings, and they were ignored. The panic spread to lower levels of the company. Interns who fetched coffee during planning sessions were now being asked what they remembered. Junior producers started calling lawyers. Some staff deleted old texts. Others scrubbed group chats. And all the while, Caroline's team said nothing. No press releases, no interviews. Just silence. Cold, calculated, controlled. It was haunting. One ABC exec reportedly told a colleague, "It's like she's already won and we're just waiting for the paperwork."
For me, and sort of lived lives of dreams deferred and poured everything in me, and just my life, how I transitioned from college. I went to college when I was 16, high school when I was 12, the struggle of that, and my career as a federal prosecutor, and then how I found my
Team kept asking for updates. The executives kept dodging because no one had good news. Every day uncovered a new risk. Every hour brought a new leak. The legal team tried suggesting a quiet settlement. But PR said a payout would look like guilt. And worse, what if Caroline refused? This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a war. And the network? They were losing. By the time the hosts were fully briefed, it was already too late. They had laughed at Caroline on air. They had dismissed the lawsuit behind the scenes. Now, they were watching the empire shake beneath them. Whoopi Goldberg was livid. She didn't walk into the meeting quietly. She came in storming, late from set, hair still half done, makeup towel in hand. She barely sat down before letting it rip. We're seriously considering a deal with her? Executives tried to explain the risk, the emails, the footage. The fact that if even one producer admitted fault, the case could unravel into a full-scale media scandal. Whoopi wasn't having it. "We're making her look like a hero," she shouted. "You think Twitter's bad now? Wait till they find out we paid her off." Joy Behar backed her up. "We built this show," she snapped. "We carried this network through election cycles, scandals, shutdowns, and this is how we're repaid, folded over one lawsuit?" The room fell quiet. All eyes turned to Sunny Hostin, the lawyer, the voice of legal reason. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look up. She quietly slid the printed lawsuit back onto the table and whispered, "She has enough to go to court. If this goes public, it won't just be about us. It'll be about the network." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "You're saying we should apologize?" Sunny didn't answer, because in her heart, she already knew. It might be the only way out, and that was the scariest part of all.
Conflating two ideas, this word wokeness didn't look like she really understood what it meant, or certainly the way Caroline Leavitt meant it when she made that statement, and she was conflating it with civil rights and how, women didn't have the right to vote or own property and all of that. That has nothing to do with wokeness, which is, of course, about putting people in there because of their immutable characteristics rather than the merit that they bring to the table.
When the cameras turned on that morning, something was clearly off. The set of The View looked the same. Bright lights, big smiles, but the energy, completely different. There were no jokes, no fast zingers, just silence and long, uncomfortable pauses. Whoopi sat with her hands folded, her usual playful smirk nowhere to be seen. She stared directly into the camera, took a deep breath, and said softly, "Things have gotten a little out of hand. Maybe we need to take a step back." That alone shocked viewers. But then Joy Behar, normally quick to dismiss any backlash, spoke up. She sounded nervous, her voice cracked a little. And for once, she didn't try to be funny. I don't know why this has to go so far. Can't we just talk? It was the first time Joy had ever seemed uncertain on air. Then came Sunny. She leaned forward, locking eyes with the lens like she was speaking directly to Caroline. Caroline, if you're watching, maybe there's a better way to solve this. 3 co-hosts. 3 please. No spin, no sarcasm, just an awkward, almost scripted attempt to de-escalate.
Attacking a woman for her looks or age isn't very progressive. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Kosha, particularly that last clip that we played, it was so condescending. The way that she was scolding her as if she was a schoolgirl, suggesting she needed to do her homework. I find it so hypocritical when these so-called, caring, progressive voices just turn so nasty like that.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the group think is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can.
Gone were the dismissive jokes. Gone was the mocking. In its place, desperation. But Caroline didn't respond. Not on Twitter. Not through a press conference. Not even a cryptic social media post. Her team issued a single chilling line. We are moving forward as planned. And just like that, it became clear. This wasn't about conversation. This wasn't about compromise. This was about accountability. Caroline had waited, watched, collected. And now, as The View scrambled to patch their public image, she stayed silent, letting their panic speak louder than any word she could offer. The hosts may have tried to soften their tone, but viewers weren't fooled. This wasn't about peace. It was about fear. And America saw it. Within minutes of the episode airing, the internet lit up like wildfire. Clips from the broadcast spread faster than anything The View had aired in months. Side-by-side comparisons showed the hosts laughing at Caroline just a week prior, now suddenly pleading for calm. One viral tweet hit hard. If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't be begging. Another said, that's not humility. That's fear. Hashtags began trending across platforms. Caroline was right. JAF View meltdown. JAS media accountability. Receipts? Don't lie TikTok. Creators dissected the shift in tone frame by frame. YouTubers posted 30-minute breakdowns pointing out the inconsistencies in Whoopi's messaging. Even meme pages joined the frenzy. One meme showed Whoopi's face next to a sinking ship with the caption, "Captain goes down with the View." Another had Joy clinging to a legal binder, her eyes wide as text read, "When the roast session becomes a deposition." It wasn't just funny, it was brutal. Fox News and conservative outlets seized the moment, dedicating full panels to the public turnaround. Opinion hosts called it a historic moment of reckoning. But even some moderate and left-leaning voices chimed in, saying it didn't matter who you supported politically. What mattered was transparency and truth. And through all of it, Caroline said nothing. No victory speech, no snarky quote. She just let the internet do what it does best, amplify the truth. Every second The View scrambled to control the damage, Caroline gained more support, more respect, more momentum. The silence, it was louder than any broadcast.
Do you want to take this?
No, you cannot be attractive and smart. I will try to give Joy the benefit, and well, thank you. I try to give Joy the benefit of the doubt that she didn't see that briefing. Because if you saw that yesterday on numerous topics, no big binder, I think she might have had a different impression of this young woman who held her own.
I mean, you would have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did absolutely no research or reading about anything dealing with Caroline Leavitt before she made that remark. Because Caroline Leavitt she went to St. Anselm College. She worked for WMUR
Ran for
TV
Congress?
in New Hampshire. She ran for Congress at the age of 25, put out a very good campaign. She lost by 8 or 9 points, but she still put on a good campaign. Then she was the press secretary for the Trump campaign, going on TV literally every day.
Well, heavily pregnant and a new mom.
Pregnant. Yeah, she's a new mother. And then she goes out yesterday and gives and this is speaking very objectively, because I've watched every press secretary since going back to Marlon Fitzwater. Yeah, I'm that old. And she went out there for her very first briefing at the age of 27 years old, the youngest press secretary ever, and did a terrific.
So now everyone expected Caroline to make some kind of move, a press tour, a public statement, maybe a sit-down interview. But she didn't flinch. She didn't waver. She didn't budge. Her team stayed laser-focused. No distractions, no bait-taking. They were reviewing evidence, sorting tapes, interviewing witnesses. And their message behind the scenes was crystal clear. Caroline was not here for PR. She was here for justice. The legal documents were airtight. Witness testimonies were stacking up. Every producer memo, every email, every joke made in poor taste. They were all becoming part of the official timeline.
Likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right. ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
Caroline. She wasn't doing this out of spite. She was doing it because she was tired of the double standard. Tired of being mocked on air and then silenced off air. Tired of fake apologies. Tired of selective outrage. She had seen it before. But this time, she had the power to fight back. And she wasn't wasting the chance. People called her brave. Others called her strategic. But most just called her right. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't pointing fingers. She was just moving forward. And The View. They were shrinking fast. Inside ABC, things were falling apart. Executives were holding emergency sessions twice a day. Advertisers were quietly pulling out of contracts. Some staff had already updated their resumes. Internal memos leaked showing heated email chains titled things like reputational risk escalation and contingency strategy view. Some executives floated the idea of rebranding the show completely. Others said it might be time to end it altogether. This isn't just a lawsuit. This is a brand crisis. And they were right. The damage wasn't just legal, it was emotional, cultural, historical.
Listen, if you don't have anything to say, you blab. You just go on and 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 Right. That's what you hear.
Yeah.
When they don't have anything to hold you with, nothing to make you think about what they have to say, they talk at you, not to you. And that's what she was doing. And she was doing it, and it's not new.
Mm-hmm. No.
But everybody's hip to you all now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we are anticipating that you are not prepared. Because you keep saying you going and you preparing when you're on the trail.
The View had long painted itself as the voice of daytime truth-telling. But now, viewers saw a different side. The side behind the curtain. The rehearsed lines, the scripted chaos, the bullying, masked as banter.
Like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because black people couldn't get into colleges, because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was...
And Caroline? She wasn't backing down. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't seeking airtime. She was standing firm, calm, clear, resolved. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about setting the record straight. And millions of Americans were watching her do it.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help, because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon, because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what they are. They are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans.
What happens next could rewrite the rule book for talk shows, for media personalities, for how far networks can go before someone finally pushes back. Because Caroline didn't flinch. She fought. And now, the storm she brought with her? It's far from over. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe now and press the bell icon, because this is not over.